The difference between rage and resolve is how carefully you breathe before you act. My name is Josh, I'm 35, and the night my wife stayed out until dawn changed me. The next day text didn't just sting, it lit a fuse. I thought about revenge, and then I planned something far worse for the betrayal, the slow, unstoppable reclaiming of my life. She came home at 6 a.m., the kind of walk that says someone has practiced her lies. Her hair was damp, perfume clinging like a memory that wouldn't fade. She pretended to be asleep when I got up to let myself in. Soft footsteps, the rustle of keys, the whisper of the door closing. I let her slide into bed and watched the ceiling until the roar in my chest quieted to something like focus. At 10 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a single text from an unknown number that had somehow reached her in the middle of the night. I opened it with hands that shook. Had a great time. See you next Friday. Winky face, M. It was blunt and small and contained the whole ugly truth. I stared at it until the letters blurred. Rage would have had me smash things, shout, call names. I've been that man before. It leaves you spent and ashamed. Instead, I planned quiet, surgical revenge, the kind that makes you look ridiculous only to the very last person who deserves it, the one who humiliated the life you built together. First, I made myself a rule. No impulsive calls, no exploded rooms, no social media strikes. Revenge would be accountability, visible, unavoidable, and dignified. If she wanted to live with that lie, she would have to live with the consequences, not my theatrics. I started with evidence. Not to hurt, but to protect myself. I saved the text, backed it up to a secure folder, and copied dates and times from our shared calendar. I took screenshots of other odd messages I'd seen in the past months and compiled them into a private file. This wasn't about revenge yet, it was boundary work, documentation of a life I might need to explain to others later. Then I called 2 people. Number 1. My closest friend, Marco, who's been with me through every bad choice and good piece of advice. I told him nothing dramatic, just the facts, and asked him to meet me for coffee. Number 2. A counselor. When your life tilts, you need a steady voice that isn't married to the noise. I wanted a plan that didn't smell like venom. Over coffee, Marco listened without flinching. Don't do something you'll regret, he said. But don't let her drag you into the dirt either. His calm steadied me. Revenge, he reminded me, can also be reclaiming your dignity. I could feel the plan taking shape. If she wanted to treat marriage like a convenience, I would treat leaving like a project. I started mentally cataloging what I wanted: a clear head, legal counsel in case she tried to gaslight, and a weekend to myself to breathe and decide. I would not be performing for strangers or striking blows that would look petty in hindsight. This was not drama, it was the end of a contract she'd torn. That evening, I confronted her, not with a text flung across the table, but with a calm I forced into my voice. We need to talk, I said. She expected a scream. Instead, I asked her to sit. I told her what I knew, calmly, and let the text sit between us. She tried the old script: confusion, blame, tears, but the dam had broken. I offered her the same thing I had offered before: honesty, or the honest end of it. She chose tears. She chose explanations of loneliness and stress and poor decisions. I listened, then told her gently, "You had one life with me. You made a choice. I'm not going to make it my punishment to fix what you broke." It surprised her that I wasn't a fist. Maybe that was the point. Over the next week, I acted with the methodical kindness of a man packing his life. I scheduled a consultation with a family lawyer, not to threaten, but to understand. I reached out to my parents and told them I needed space, and I told my boss I'd be off the following Monday. I boxed up the photo albums and the silly knickknacks that mean more to memory than to money. I changed passwords quietly and updated accounts. I did it all with gentle efficiency, tidy, unemotional, inexorable. The revenge came last, banal and devastating. I moved out. Not into an act of spite, but into a new apartment with sunlight and cheap furniture and the smell of coffee that wasn't compromised by irony. I took the dog that had cheered us both up and started sleeping properly for the first time in months. In texts to friends and family, I wrote facts, not invective. I let the truth, preserved in screenshots and dates, be the witness rather than my temper. Word spread because truth does. Friends asked questions. Mutual acquaintances reorganized their assumptions. She tried to call. I didn't answer. She sent apologies. I saved them, unread, and let them be what they were, words she wanted to use to avoid consequences. Months later, during a quiet breakfast with Marco, I realized nothing dramatic had happened to her. She hadn't been publicly disgraced. She was just living with her choices. My revenge, if I can call it that, had been worse for her than any scene. I gave her none of the expected theatrics, and in exchange I took everything she once used for leverage. My presence, my time, my tolerance. She'd lost me without the catharsis of a fight. She lost what mattered, the gentle daily availability she had taken for granted. And me. I gained a life that fit without pretense. I went back to therapy, to running, to late-night songwriting that sounded like healing. The text that had lit the fuse became, in the end, the spark that burned the house of my self-doubt down, leaving a foundation to build from. Revenge is a tempting word, but what I planned wasn't to punish. It was to protect myself, to document the truth, and to walk away with my dignity intact. That was the hardest, quietest victory of all.